Hello everyone, welcome back to part 3 of our learning series of how to use Unreal Engine for architectural visualization. In this video, we'll be learning how to use the lighting tools inside Unreal Engine to produce a nice effect on our 3D model. From our last video, I believe most of you have imported our Datasmith files inside Unreal Engine. For this demonstration, I have imported only 3 files to speed up the lighting process to show you the lighting effect after the baking is finished. We'll be speaking in details about this later on. So to start, the first thing we should do is to save our current progress on a level. So we'll go to File and Save Current As and choose the name for your level, let's say for example a daytime, and hit save. That's way when you open your Unreal Engine project again, you can easily go to your level by double click the level name. Also, you can go to Edit, Project Settings, and on the left side, if you go to the Maps and Moods, Editor Starter Map, you can actually define where Unreal Engine should start and which level. So for this we can choose a daytime. Every time you're gonna close and open Unreal Engine, it will open on this level. Also, in the same project setting, I would recommend closing up the exposure, the auto exposure. By default it's on, so it's better that you close it and have a better result on your lighting system. Another thing we should also do is to go to the editor preferences, write down Autosave, and you'll see your Autosave settings. In default, the frequency in minutes, it's 10 minutes, so you can increase this as you wish. Also, the delay in the message, you can increase it. I think it's 10 seconds, so it's better that you increase it. I made it 20. You can define the time as you prefer. Alright. The other thing we should be speaking of is the object types. We have imported our Datasmith files as a static mesh. If you look on the right side, you'll see the mobility of your object: a static, a stationary, a movable object. To easily describe this, a static object is an object that will not move. So when you put your light and you hit build, your object will not move. But if you move it after you finish the building process, you will see some artifacts and you'll have lots of problems in your scene. So if your object's gonna be moved, let's say for example it's a car, or for our example here, these canopies, we have 3 options of them, so it's better to have them as a stationary type of object. So if you move them after the lighting build have finished, it will not affect your scene. The last type is the movable object, and this is always applicable to those objects who have animations inside of them. Let's say for example a car or a trees, grass, and other stuff that have animation inside of it. For the performance differences, static objects represent the best performance in terms of a fast and also a better frame per second presentation. So in our example, I believe we're gonna set our villa and the landscape to a static mesh, as they have been adjusted according to our import process. But for the canopy, we would like to put it on a stationary because we're gonna change it later on or switch it with its other options using something called a variant manager. So to easily choose it, just click on the canopy, right click, select all descendants. You'll not see the mobility option because the hierarchy element is chosen, so just hit Control, left click, and you'll see the mobility coming up. So I'm gonna put them on a stationary mode. Another thing, if you're moving around your object and you wanna focus on one of the object, just hit one of the object, hit F, and it will zoom in to your object. I believe most of these tools are very obvious for you to test them one by one and check, like for example the camera speed. You can decrease the camera speed or increase it, but because we have a long details of the lighting, we actually want to move on to the lighting tools. Alright, so we have imported our files and we have adjusted our objects. Just to add a final point, your folders during our exercise will increase in numbers. So something really nice about Unreal Engine is that you can define your folder colors. So for example, our modern villa file that includes all the datasmith can easily go to set color and change the color as you wish. Let's say for example blue. And for a starter content, you can also change the color to something different. So it's just as an arrangement kind of point of view. You have the freedom to do it or not to do it. Alright, the lighting tools. So on the left side, if you head to the lighting element, and you're gonna see all these tools inside Unreal Engine. A directional light represent the sun but without a sky. We'll speak in details also later on. And you have a point light, spotlight, a rectangular light. These three lights, the point and the spot and the rectangular light, are commonly used for your night time of day or for your interior scene, in case you want your interior to be lighted up during the day. Sorry about that. So one thing to mention about the lighting tools is it has also a mobility option. So for example, for the directional light, you have also a static, stationary, and a movable. The same meaning for the lighting as we have spoken about the object. Static means you cannot change the light position, but for stationary you can also change the light position. And movable is a little bit different, that it doesn't actually have a built kind of a technique in it. So if you choose your lighting to be a movable, there's no point of hitting build to bake the lighting in your scene, because it's gonna be like a dynamic light. We'll see that later on once we start the lighting also. We also have the skylight, HDRI backdrop, and a sun in the sky. Alright, to speed things up, I will start with the sun and the sky, as it's one of the things that we always use in our V-Ray type effect inside 3D Max. The sun and sky are actually a physical control sun and a sky direction. Right now it looks a little bit exposed, like the amount of the sun direction is really high, so we're gonna just go to that direction light and decrease the light amount, let's say for example to 15 or for 10 for example. Alright, so as you can see, you have a mix of a light, a directional light, and a skylight. If you look at this panel here at your component elements, while we're choosing the sun and sky, you'll see that you have a compass, a skylight, a directional light, and a sky atmosphere. Also inside the scene, if you hit Control and L and move your mouse to the right and the left, you'll be changing the sun rotation. If you move it front and back, you'll be changing the daytime position of the sun. pretty cool, like we are doing inside like we used to do inside 3D Max and V-Ray. So currently we have our sun direction and the sky at this position. On the right side, as you can see, we have our sun and sky on a movable type of mobility. But because we want to use the building lighting bake system, I would put the sun and the sky on a static mobility. So this is the skylight and the direction light, and also in a static mobility. We'll be moving to the build now to start to see how the lighting will look like. As you can see, it looks a little bit funny. So if you click on this small arrow, you'll see a building lighting build quality. We'll start from a preview quality to a high production level. Let's set it for high, and let's set our lighting here to build the lighting and see our result. But before we do that, I have to point out something regarding the light building system inside Unreal Engine. It's basically made of calculations of the photons that comes from the light source on your 3D models. And according to your project scale, sometimes if you have a big scale project and you want to actually build the light, or you want to focus your light build system on a specific area, it is really recommended, and it's really actually important, to have a light importance volume around the area that you want the light to be built inside it. So I just dragged the volume, and from top view, as you can see, it's a little bit small. So I'm gonna increase the scale for it. We have this small lock on the right side. If you close it and you adjust the scale, let's say for 15, it will adjust the scale on all of your X and Y, Z axis. So let's say for example 50. Let's look from the left side. The Z is actually out of scale, so I'm gonna disable the lock. Just hit R and scale it down a little bit. Alright. So for now, I would hit build now and see how things gonna go with the lighting process. Alright, so I'm gonna pause the video to see the result after the lighting build will finish. Alright, so now after the light build have finished, we can press on F11 to maximize our viewport, so we can see how the lighting calculation went through the process. So a few of things we're gonna talk about. I mean, the lighting on the villas looks okay in terms of just as a test to see how the lighting gonna get baked on the 3D objects. We still have no shadows on the canopy, so I'm gonna click F11 again. As we can see, we have put our canopy as a stationary, but because our lighting was assigned as a static light, it did not give us any shadows on our canopy. So at this stage, it will be better to put our sun on a stationary mobility option, and also the skylight as a stationary mobility option. This is where we're gonna get shadows from this canopy. So again, if you press Ctrl and L, move the sun. I'm gonna try to move the sun a little bit down this time, so you can see a kind of a sun, a kind of a sunset effect. Alright, Before we hit build again, also I should point out this message that we can see here, lighting needs to be rebuilt. You will get this message every time you change the light position. Unreal is telling you that you need to build your lighting again because you have changed your lighting position, and because your objects, as actually most of them are static, so if you move the light, as you can see, we still have the same lighting bake we had from our first build. Alright, before we proceed with the next build, something that we all used to do inside 3D Max or any other software that most of Arch-viz artists used to do, is that we always like to put our full scene into one gray color, and that will help us to focus on the flow of light on our scene. So we're gonna adjust our full scene material to a gray color. We can reach to that because we're gonna speak about the materials, and in our next chapter we're gonna speak in details about how to create the materials. But for now, we're gonna use one of the starter content inside the material folder. I'm gonna take this gray color to easily assign your material to the whole scene. As you can see, if I choose one of the objects, you can see the material here, so I can easily drag and put it here, but it will take time to assign it to the whole scene. So an easy way to do this is again to choose the hierarchy villa element, and then right click, select all descendants, then go again and hit control, press control and hit again the villa, and you will get the materials available for you to change. So if I drag it here, now we have all the villa in a gray color. I can press on H to hide the villa so I can focus on the remaining object. I'll go to the landscape the same way, right click, select all descendant, press control, click on the landscape, and then go to the material, assign this gray color material. Again, press H to hide the object, and for the canopy also select all descendant, and we're going to choose this material again. So to unhide all your scene, just press Ctrl and H and you will get all the objects visible again in your scene. Alright, so let's hit build again and see how the lighting will show in the next build. So I'm gonna hit build and pause the video again and come back once the build have finished. Okay, so our lighting build is finished. So again, if we click F11 to maximize our viewport, based on the default settings and just playing around with the sun direction, just hitting build without adjusting two of the main parameters that we're gonna talk about now to increase the settings of our lighting. This will help most of our Arch-viz members to achieve a review of the whole scene in terms of if there is any problems with the 3D model of the light bleeding or anything, if lighting is going, if there is a gap between two surfaces or anything. At this point, it's not like a targeted lighting criteria that we're looking for, but for a draft version, I think, or I believe, this helps a lot. So now we want to talk about how to increase the quality of our lighting build. two of the main criteria that we want to talk about is the light mass that we have spoken earlier in our second video when we talked about it when we were exporting our objects from 3D Max, and that is the light mass. To see our resolution of the light mass, basically just gonna go to the lit panel here, go down to optimization view modes and choose light map density that also have a shortcut of Alt and O. Once you click on it, you will see your 3D model and colors. These colors represent your resolution of your light map. So for example, as you can see here, these squares represent how the shadows and also how the materials will look like on the surface of this object. The object that we have selected have and its parameters on the right side. If we go down to the lighting, it was imported by Datasmith and assigned a resolution of 256. So to increase the quality of the lighting and shadows that we want to achieve in our lighting build, basically what we can do is increase the lighting resolution, and this is achieved by increasing the resolution by clicking on the override button beside the resolution size and adjusting that by multiplying this number by 2. So if it's 64, basically the next number will be 128, the next one will be 256. So our target to go to the smallest and the colors that are near to the orange or red. We'll try to avoid the red color as the one we have here as much as possible, as increasing the light map resolution will increase also the time of the lighting build process, and we will only do that once we settled with our materials or our lighting direction. But for our training purpose here, let's have a look at the increasing the light map resolution. So I'm gonna increase this, for example, to 512. As you can see, the color have gone to a lighter green, which is acceptable as it's part of a landscape element. And for those elements that, for example, that will that's gonna need close-up shots or anything, I would recommend increasing the light map resolution. But for the object that would not require a close-up shots, it's okay to have let's say, for example, like the same thing we have. This is a 512, but the resolution is still a little bit big, so it's recommended to move to the next one, which is 1024, and this is acceptable, or you can increase it also to 2048. Also for the walls and the floors, this is really important, so you can have a smooth line of the shadows of the light source. This, for example, we're gonna go 124, and you can continue later on with your model to increase the light map density. The next thing we're gonna adjust to have a better quality is the world settings of our lighting build system. If you don't see your world settings and your interface, basically you're just gonna go to a window and just hit on world settings, and it will come up on the right side. To adjust the lighting build quality settings, basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to these 5 parameters right here. If you hover over with your mouse on each one of them, you will get a description of what is recommended by Unreal Engine. So as you can see here, the static lighting level scale, if you go less than 1, this will increase the lighting build time to your project. Also for the skylight bounce and the indirect light bounce, increasing this number will increase also the lighting process, but it will increase the quality. So we will put this, for example, for 5, and this one also, to bounce more light around the scene and keep the indirect light quality and the light smoothness on 1 for this lighting process, so we can get a decent quality at a reasonable time at a reasonable amount of time. But this time I'm gonna hit the lighting build quality to a production level and hit build and come back once the lighting build is finished. Alright, so now after the build of the lighting bake has finished, you can see that there is a little bit of improvement in the lighting process. This area have been a little bit of dark now because we have increased the number of the skylight bounces. A few of the light photons have reached inside and lighted up this area. And this is how you start to practice more on increasing these values up to the level that it will not increase. It will give you a nice result, and at the same time it will not increase your building time. Till now we are just trying to reach to a decent presentation of our model using the sun and the sky tool inside the Unreal Engine. But this is not our target, as we are targeting something more commonly used in our 3D render platform, and that is using an HDRI image, so we can reflect the color of the sky on top of the building and also play with the sun direction aligned with the HDRI to get a really realistic look of our 3D model. But till now I believe it's good to practice different techniques to light your our scene here, in case you have a very fast presentation to see to show how your 3D model is progressing. I believe that the sun and sky is really good in terms of a fast presentation of the model. So this will conclude our part 1 of the lighting tutorial. In part 2 we will be speaking in details about using the HDRI image inside the HDRI backdrop tool that was recently introduced in Unreal Engine 4.23, I guess. So it has a lots of cool effects that we will see in our next video. But for now I would recommend that you practice more with the lighting techniques that we have used with the sun and the sky, and let me know the problems that you have faced during this process and the comments below, please. So right now I would recommend again to practice with this tool and change the sun direction of the sky, and try to get familiar with the build and the world settings parameters to try more. And I'll be happy to if you can send me your tests so we can see how things are going. And again, if there is any problems, please let me know so we can share it and discuss it in details. For now, please try to practice on this one, and see you in the next video. Thank you very much.